Welcome to this explainer module. We're going to be doing a highly structured, rigorous academic review of Nepal's physical, socio-cultural, and economic geography today. If you're preparing for your Section 1.1 examinations, particularly if you're aiming for that 7th level officer tier, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to systematically unpack the fundamental geographic and demographic realities of Nepal, and we'll be relying on the definitive metrics from the final National Population and Housing Census 2021, along with the latest economic survey. Let's get right into it.
Here's a quick look at our agenda. Today we're covering 1. Physical and climatic geography. 2. Demography and population dynamics. 3. Sociocultural composition. 4. Macroeconomic geography and growth. And finally, 5. Infrastructure and sectoral shifts.
Starting right off with Section 1, Physical and Climatic Geography.
Before we can even begin to understand the economy, we absolutely must establish the geographic foundation. Notice the stark climatic divisions across Nepal's 3 ecological belts. As a candidate, grasping this fundamental variation is crucial. Down in the south, the Terai experiences subtropical conditions, move upward, and the hill region transitions into a cool to warm temperate climate. The mountain region, conversely, is defined by a harsh Arctic or alpine climate. Think about that for a second. An extreme vertical intersection of weather systems squeezed into a mere 150 to 250 kilometers from north to south. This incredible geographic reality directly drives the entire nation's agricultural output and its settlement patterns.
Now, when we look at the actual land distribution, a severe structural imbalance immediately jumps out. The country is divided into the Terai, which occupies just 17% of the total land area, the hills taking up a vast 68%, and the mountains at 15%. So what's the crucial takeaway here? It's that while the Terai holds the absolute smallest fraction of land, it consists of the most fertile flat plains. It's essentially the food store of Nepal. This highly uneven distribution of arable land sets the exact stage for the massive demographic shifts we're about to analyze.
Moving on to Section 2, Demography and Population Dynamics. Let's unpack the definitive demographic metrics. I want you to commit this exact figure to memory. The final official population of Nepal in 2021 was 29,164,578. The census also recorded a sex ratio of 95.59 males per 100 females. You really need to note this ratio because it perfectly reflects the demographic impact of significant outbound male labor migration, which leaves a notably higher resident female population across the country.
Now here is a truly pivotal benchmark. The annualized population growth rate has literally plummeted to 0.92%. This is the lowest growth rate recorded in Nepal in all 80 years. This decelerating demographic expansion is being driven primarily by 2 major factors. First, a declining total fertility rate, which has fallen to 1.85, and second, sustained outbound labor migration to destinations like the Gulf countries, Malaysia, and India.
Alongside this slowing overall growth, we're witnessing a massive spatial shift in where Nepalis actually live. Urban density has reached an astonishing 66.17%. Rural populations in the hills and mountains are heavily migrating down toward the Terai Plains and major urban centers. Just to put that into perspective, the Terai regions now average over 400 persons per square kilometer, while many Himalayan districts remain sparsely populated at below 50.
These spatial movements paint a very clear picture of rapid transition. This demographic shift becomes undeniable when you contrast it with the previous census. Back in 2011, the growth rate was 1.35%. In 2021, as we just discussed, it's 0.92%. Furthermore, the average household size has shrunk from 4.88 persons down to 4.37. These figures clearly signal a rapidly changing socioeconomic landscape. We're moving away from large multi-generational agrarian families toward much smaller, nuclear, urban dwelling units.
Which brings us to Section 3, Socio-cultural Composition.
Within this shifting demographic landscape, Nepal maintains an extraordinary level of socio-cultural complexity. This is absolutely vital for understanding the nation's federal structure and how resources are allocated. The demographic makeup is highly fractured. This means there's no absolute majority anywhere. The Chetri form the largest single group at 16.45%, followed closely by Hill Brahmins at 11.29%, Magars at 6.9%, and Tharus at 6.2%. Notice that the others category accounts for nearly 60% of the population. That really underscores a deep, systemic diversity that policymakers have to navigate every single day.
From a statistical standpoint, the 2021 census officially recognized an increase to 142 distinct castes and ethnicities, up from 125 in the previous census, and these groups speak an incredible 124 mother tongues. Religiously, the nation predominantly practices Hinduism, comprising 81.2% of the population, alongside very significant Buddhist, Islamic, and Christian communities. Look, this diversity isn't just trivia. It is the fundamental fabric of Nepal's federal republic design.
Let's shift gears to Section 4, Macroeconomic Geography and Growth.
Having populated our geographic landscape, let's turn to their economic output. For your macroeconomic benchmarks, please note that the national GDP growth is projected at a fairly restrained 3.85%. This growth is operating within a total economy valued at approximately 6.6 trillion rupees. This restrained outlook is a direct reflection of weak agricultural output, sluggish credit expansion, and quite subdued private investment.
The per capita GDP currently stands at $1,513. However, it is absolutely imperative that you recognize the severe regional disparities hidden underneath this national average. For instance, Bagmati Province, which is the economic center containing the Kathmandu Valley, generates over $2,600 per capita. In stark contrast, Madhesh Province, despite possessing those highly fertile plains we talked about earlier, suffers from very low service sector development and lags completely behind at below $1,000 per capita.
Now, there is a critical structural anomaly here you must understand for your exams: premature deindustrialization. While the agriculture sector still employs roughly 62% of the workforce, its actual contribution to the GDP has dwindled to just 24.0%. The economy is now heavily eclipsed by the non-agriculture sector, specifically a service sector that contributes nearly 62% to the national GDP. Think about what that means. The vast majority of the population is working in the nation's least economically productive sector.
So, despite these massive structural weaknesses, including a huge trade deficit, how does the economy maintain such robust external stability? The answer is human capital export. Over 2.19 million absentee citizens are sending home 1.45 trillion rupees in remittances. This immense financial inflow bolsters foreign exchange reserves to a record 3.414 trillion rupees. That's enough to cover over 18 months of imports, all while keeping inflation at a highly manageable 2.13%.
Finally, we reach Section 5, Infrastructure and Sectoral Shifts.
Let's examine the infrastructural backbone that is supporting this transitioning, remittance-fueled economy. The most significant infrastructural benchmark to remember here is the achievement of 4,105 megawatts of installed power capacity. This is predominantly sourced from hydropower, representing a massive leap in domestic energy production capabilities and laying a very strong foundation for future industrialization.
This surge in generation has been a real game-changer, allowing Nepal to achieve near-universal electricity access, successfully connecting an impressive 99.1% of the population. Even better, this new capacity has transformed Nepal into an energy exporter. The country is now exporting nearly 3,000 gigawatt-hours of surplus power, which provides a vital new stream of foreign currency.
So as we synthesize all of these shifts, a highly complex picture emerges. We see undeniable progress, right? Absolute poverty has declined to 20.27%, and electricity access is nearly universal. Yet, this is all happening alongside a severe hollowing out of rural districts. The economy is overwhelmingly consumption-driven, accounting for over 90% of GDP, which is largely being funded by those remittances. Local governments are facing an unprecedented challenge, trying to provide services for a foundational agrarian population that is increasingly voting with its feet and moving either to urban centers or abroad entirely.
As you wrap up your revision for this module, I want to leave you with a major structural paradox to consider, especially for your exam essays. Can Nepal achieve sustainable, equitable macroeconomic expansion while its foundational agricultural belts and traditional mountain communities continue to rapidly depopulate? I highly encourage you to think critically about the fragile balance between this remittance-driven service growth and the severe underutilization of the rural agricultural sector. Thank you for joining this explainer, and best of luck with your continued academic preparations.